Season starts tonight. Hey, what's going on, guys? I haven't made the thumbnail for this video yet here, haven't brushed my hair either. Back at it with another banger video. Today I'm joined by my Co-op brand sparkling water. Yay. Today I'm going to be doing my Premier League predictions. There will be a video on the main channel. I'll be reviewing either Trippie Red, Fredo, No Name, or Reason album. I've not decided yet. I've not listened to any of them, admittedly. But yeah, here to speak about football, not music. But let's get into the predictions. Now, I'm aware that this is kind of an obvious pick, and I really don't want this to happen. Because I don't think anyone wants Luton to go down. I could see them being sort of neutral's favourite this season. I just don't think that they've got it in them to stay up. Rob Edwards, I think, is quite an inexperienced manager. He did a great job getting them up last season, but I don't think he's that experienced. As far as I'm aware, he's only had 2 leading jobs, and both of which were last season. I am actually quite a big fan of some of the business they've been doing. A lot of players have came in. Tae Chong and stuff, I think, could be exciting and could be a really fun player in the Premier League, along with some of their other signings. I just don't think they've got enough in the tank to stay up. Even though I do want them to, and I'll happily be proven wrong if they do stay up. But yeah, Luton, I think, will be a fun team next year. Be weird seeing them on Match of the Day and stuff, but yeah, looking forward to it. Wolves. What to say about them? Now, this is probably going to be one of my more unpopular takes from this video, I think. I've actually not seen all the prediction videos or anything, but I think a lot of people will think, oh, Wolves will be like lower mid-table or whatever, but I don't think there's a great atmosphere around the club at the moment. Obviously, Julian Lopetegui left. They brought in Gary O'Neill, who, as a Bournemouth fan, I do rate O'Neill. I think he did a great job keeping us up last season, but whether he can do that again, I'm not so sure. The transfer business hasn't really impressed me that much, and they have also lost quite a lot of players, with Ruben Neves and Raul Jimenez, Connor Cody, all these players leaving. I get Connor Cody wasn't there last season, but I do rate him still. And I just think that, yes, they stayed up quite comfortably last season, but I think that the relegation battle has gotten tougher. Like, I think the teams at the bottom have gotten better this season than they were last season, because part of the reason Wolves stayed up so comfortably, in my opinion, wasn't that they were good, it was just how bad the teams below them were. But yeah, I think this is the year that Wolves finally go down, which will be a shame to see. The Wolves project back in like 2018, 2019 sort of times, it was really exciting, and it will be a shame to see that sort of fizzle out. But I don't see Wolves doing well next season, let's just say that. Sheffield United, I think, are a team that could stay up. Out of the bottom 3 I've got right now, I think Sheffield United have the highest chance of staying up. That's why I predicted them highest of the relegated teams. I think a lot of the transfer links have been quite exciting. I know that they've been looking at bringing in Chuba Akpom from Middlesbrough, and Gustavo Hamer from Coventry, who I think would be 2 great signings. I just think that there's been a sort of lack of movement on the transfer front, and they also did lose quite a lot of players coming up, especially on like free transfers and stuff. I know like Enda Stevens and Ollie McBurney and that have left. I think I could just be making that up. I know they were out of contract at the end of last season though. Iliman Ndiaye, has left the club, and I think he was a great source of goals for them last season. So yeah, it'll be intriguing to see how they replace him, but I'm not sure if I can quite see the Blades staying up. Now, this is another hot take, I think, but Fulham, I think it'll be a difficult season for them. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I think a bit of second season syndrome will creep in. I know that there's been quite a lot of drama around the club surrounding the manager, Marco Silva. I know he was linked to a Saudi club, I can't remember which one. I'm not even gonna lie. Alexander Mitrovic is also leaving. He's obviously been a very important player there the entire time he's been there. So yeah, I'm also not really convinced about the business. They've brought in Raul Jimenez, who hasn't been great since the injury. Pre-injury, Jimenez was one of the best strikers outside of the top six, but since the injury, he's not really been the same player he was before. I do think Fulham will stay up. I think they've got enough in the tank. Even though there is a lot of drama around the club right now. What's his name? I know the defensive midfielder, I can't remember the name of. I know he was linked with a move away. So yeah, it'll be a tough ride for Fulham, but I think that they've got enough to stay up. Now, Nottingham Forest had a very up and down season last season. They went through spells of actually looking pretty decent, and then like spells where they were like not winning at all and getting smashed every week. I think this season is more about stability. They obviously brought in a lot of players last season and were made fun of for it. They've sort of toned down the business a bit, with less players coming in, but I think these new additions have also been pretty good. Particularly what I'm excited for is Anthony Elanga from Man United. Obviously, he was sort of like a bench player for Man United, so it'll be interesting to sort of see him come into the fold as more of a starting 11 player. I think he's got a very high ceiling, and yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he does. I'm looking forward to seeing how some of their other signings do. Steve Cooper, I rate as a manager. And yeah, I think this season will be a bit more stable than last season, and then maybe they can go and kick on next season. Now, I did say earlier that I'm a Bournemouth fan, so it's probably a bit biased. But yeah, I'm really buying into the Iraola, if that's how you say it, hype. I've looked into him. He was great in his previous job in the Liga and was comfortably beating very big teams. I also am really excited by some of the business. We've obviously brought in that new left back, Kirka, this is however you say it, who we needed a left back, so I'm glad we brought him in. Alex Scott, I think, is a great signing from Bristol City with a very high ceiling, and obviously looking at how we developed someone like Marcus Tavernier last season, I think that our championship recruitment's been pretty good. Who else? Max Aarons I saw got confirmed today from Norwich. So yeah, I think it'll be a very fun season for us, but I don't think we'll go down, to be honest. I know part of that is me being biased as a fan, but like, I genuinely think we could have a great season next season. Everton are an interesting one. It sort of feels like they've been just scraping by each season. They've not picked up 40 points in the last 2 seasons, I think. Maybe 3, I don't know. But yeah, I don't really know why. I've predicted them this highly, to be honest. I just think they're better than all the 5 teams I've put below them. 6 teams, sorry. Not focusing. Right. But yeah, I just think that they're a bit better. They're a more experienced dressing room. There is still definitely a lot of work that needs to be done. But yeah, I do rate Sean Dyche as a manager. I think he could have a good season and keep them up. Now, West Ham were one of the biggest underachievers of the league last season. They had a massive fall off, and I think that trend will sort of continue. They're in the Europa League now, so it'll be difficult to focus on that and the league, especially with how they've got a relatively thin squad. Some of the transfer business I think's been decent. I know they've been linked to quite a few players like James Ward-Prowse and stuff, who I think he could be a great addition. Obviously, I think the loss of Declan Rice will impact them quite a bit, and that's why I don't see them really kicking on, but I do see them sort of being a bit more stable than they were last season. Brentford, I think, will have a bit of a slide from where they were last season. Obviously, they've got the Ivan Toney ban. And yeah, I know a lot of people will think they'll struggle quite a bit without Toney. I do see them struggling for maybe a while, but I rate Thomas Frank as a manager, and obviously he's not gone the whole season. He'll be back in January, so it'll be a massive boost. And then, yeah, the Brentford project, it's quite an exciting one. Crystal Palace are an interesting team. They always seem to have a lot of hype around them and then just fade at the end. Roy Hodgson is committed to the club, which could go one of 2 ways. Obviously, when he first left, things had gone a bit stale, but at the end of last season, their form was insane. They were scoring 4 or 5 goals every week, it felt like. So yeah, obviously they've lost Wilfred Zaha as well, so that will impact them. Michael Olise has been linked to the move away, but I think he'll stay at the club. That could age really poorly. I really, really rate Eze and Olise as the 2 wingers. I do think they need to do a bit more business than they have done just so far. But I do rate the squad. And I think Roy Hodgson, he's got that experience, and yeah, will be another standard 40 plus point season for Palace. This is a really optimistic prediction, but Burnley had a great season last season in the Championship, going 100 points, well over 100 points. And there is actually quite a weird statistic that all the 100 points teams have never gone down. The Vincent Kompany project is really exciting, I think. Brought on a lot of players again this season, like they did last season. Bit of a mixed bag. Some of their signings have been not so great. They've also missed out on a few players they were linked with. But I think that they'll do very well. They play in the first game of the season, it's them against Man City, so it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Because Burnley were kind of like the Man City of the Championship last season, how dominant they were. But yeah, I think that Burnley will have a great season. And yeah, it will be a very exciting one as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing how Vincent Kompany sort of adapts his tactics to the Premier League, whether he'll continue playing the very progressive possession-based football they were playing last season, or he'll come with something completely new. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and not only do I think they'll stay up, but I think they'll get a top 10 finish. Brighton, I think, will still have another good season. They've been doing really well for the last few seasons under Graham Potter and then now under Roberto De Zerbi. Obviously, they did get European football last season, so they will be aiming to do that again. I'm not sure if they'll do it again this time. I just don't think they've got enough depth to handle both Europe and getting another high finish in the Premier League. But I do rate Roberto De Zerbi as manager, and I rate the squad. So yeah, they've also made quite a few great signings. I think James Milner is one that will be particularly good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how things go at Brighton. Even if it's a bit of a fall off from last season, which I think is to be expected, it'll still be another fun year, and they'll have another crack at breaking the top 6. I just think that the 8 teams are predicted above them are stronger than Brighton are. Chelsea are interesting. Obviously, really disappointed last season. Spent a lot of money and then finished bottom half. I don't think they'll do that again, but I think it'll be a small step up from last season. I think Maurizio Pochettino, who I think is going to be the manager. I'm not so sure what's going on with that. I think he's a better manager than Graham Potter and Frank Lampard. I just think that this will be a bit of a transition year for Chelsea before they get really good again. I think obviously a lot of the players have left the club: Mason Mount, Edouard Mendy, Kalidou Koulibaly, N'Golo Kante, Mateo Kovacic, and more. Kai Havertz. They've all left the club. Majority of them going to Saudi Arabia. Chelsea, I think, have been the most affected by that. But yeah, I think a lot of the younger signings from last season could have a better go of things this season. Players like Badiashile or Enzo Fernandez or Mudryk or whatever, I think will have better seasons because these. I know a lot of these players failed last season, but people forget just how young a lot of Chelsea signings are, I think. and I think most of the signings have very high ceilings. So I think it will be a small step up and a bit of a transition year. And yeah, I think if Todd Bowley sticks with Pochettino at the wheel, things are only going up from now. Tottenham were another disappointing team last season. They didn't really do too great, it led to Conte leaving. They've brought in Ange Postecoglou as the manager, which I know a lot of people were clowning, but I think he's a good manager. Can't really speak on his stuff in Japan, but his time at Celtic, he was playing a very exciting brand of football, which, you know, it'll be Tottenham returning to play nice football again after the Conte seasons, sorry. But yeah, I think Harry Kane has left, which will obviously be a big blow to them. You know, having Harry Kane leading the line versus having Richarlison leading the line are two very different stories. Obviously, Son Heung-min had a bit of a disappointing year last year, so hopefully he can come back to how good he was before. But yeah, I think they've still got a decent squad, and I think Ange Postecoglou is a good manager. So yeah, it will be another sort of transition season for Tottenham. Aston Villa, I think, are a really exciting team. Um, Under Unai Emery, they had a very, very great end to last season. I think I saw a statistic somewhere saying that if the season was just from when Conte joined to the end of the season, that's not ugh. Emery, sorry. Ugh. Can you tell I'm tired? Yeah, under Emery until the end of the season, they would have finished 5th. So yeah, I think it'll be more of the same. I think that a lot of the transfer dealings have been quite exciting. Pau Torres is a great player. Um, they've also brought in Yuri Tielemans and the famous one, Moussa Diaby, rejected Saudi money, you play for VFC, Moussa Diaby, who they actually got, despite a lot of clubs being interested. I know that Newcastle were very interested in him. And these 3 signings, I think, are 3 great ones. So yeah, it'll be really exciting to see where Emery, not Conte, can take them next season. Newcastle, I think, will have a slight fall off from last season. Fallen 1 place in my predictions. Yeah, I think that the Champions League will affect them. Obviously, one of the main positives at Newcastle last season was the fact that they didn't have European football, so it allowed them to focus more on the league. Obviously, this time around that's a bit different, and I don't think they have the squad depth just yet to juggle both. Which is why I do see them falling out of the Champions League places next season. Although I do think, despite that a lot of their business has been exciting. Obviously, they missed out on James Maddison, which was a bit of a blow, but I think Sandro Tonali was a really great signing and shows a lot of intent to pick him up from AC Milan. And also Harvey Barnes, I think, is a good winger, which will add to things. Um, Eddie Howe, obviously I'm very experienced with Eddie Howe, but yeah, I really rate him as a manager, and I rate the project, so I don't think things will all come falling down or whatever. I just think it'll be a small step back to take some steps forward. Speaking of falls, I think Arsenal will be hit by the fact they didn't win the league last season. We've seen a few players leaving already, but yeah, a big tell of how a team's going to do in the next season can usually be their end of season form, which Arsenal obviously they weren't doing too great towards the end of last season. I'm also pretty sure the miss out on the title will affect the sort of morale at the club. And their business has been a bit up and down. On one hand, I think the signings of Declan Rice and Timber are two great signings. Declan Rice, one of the best midfielders in the league, one of the best players outside the Big Six, maybe the best. And Timber was really promising at Ajax. I can't say I've watched all that much Dutch football, but yeah, I think he's a good signing for the future. Obviously, still got a lot of great players at the club, players like Ben White or Gabriel or Odegaard. But speaking of Odegaard, I don't really get the signing of Havertz because it is just Odegaard Part 2, really. They've already got a left-footed attacking midfielder, so why they brought him in, I don't know. But yeah, I think that Arsenal will have a bit of a fall from last season, but they will still get Champions League, which is what's important. Man United have had one massive pro in their transfer business and one massive con, which is why I predicted them to do similarly to how they did last season. I think the signing of Onana is really great for them. They've finally nailed down a good keeper after De Gea's sort of fall from grace in the last few seasons. I also think Mason Mount was a really great signing from Chelsea, and I could see him doing quite well for United. More of an actual leader, which is something they were sort of needing in the dressing room. Obviously, Harry Maguire and Bruno Fernandes have been like previous captains and stuff. I think Mason Mount is a better leader than both of those players. Yeah, and I think players like Antony and those kinds of players will continue growing. Darlow as well. I'm not convinced by the striker options. Marcus Rashford was playing up top for them, but I think he's better as a winger. Obviously, Anthony Martial's not the best player. So if they can get a striker in before the end of the window, it could be a very different story. I'm not saying they'd win the league, but it could be a very different story. But outside of that, I think it'll be another great year for United. Is things under Ten Hag become a bit more stable than they were last season. Liverpool are an interesting one. It's another sort of transition year for one of these like Big Six teams, if you will. I think it'll be a massive transition year for pretty much all the teams in that sort of conversation. But I think Liverpool had kind of grown a bit stagnant under Jurgen Klopp. Sort of comfortable with how they were, but like I think their business this summer has been really exciting. The additions of like some McAllister and Lavia, I think, will be very great for them. Obviously, we've got a lot of players playing back into confidence as well, with the likes of Trent Alexander-Arnold and Mo Salah getting better towards the end of last season than they were at the start. I also think, players like Darwin Núñez and Luis Diaz and Cody Gakpo will all continue developing, and they could have one of the best attacks in the league next year, and that's not even mentioning Mo Salah, who, is capable of hitting 30 goals a season if he wants to. So yeah, I think it is a very exciting year for Liverpool, and I think this is the closest they've been to winning the title since they last won it back in the 1920 season. But I just don't think they're as strong as the team I've predicted first. Wonder who that'll be, huh? Man City. What is there to say about Man City? They just win the league every season. They just win the league. I actually have started caring more about relegation battles at this point because it's more unpredictable. But yeah, Man City will win the league again, in my opinion. I think Josko Vardiol is a good signing, if that's how you say his name. I don't know, I'm afraid. Obviously, they've got a very great squad already, which they've just built on this season. Players like Erling Haaland, you know, if that was his sort of adjustment year to the Premier League, I'd be very excited to see how he'll do this year. Now that he's sort of been more embedded into the system. I think he broke the goal scoring record last season while he was adjusting to the system, so you never know. Also, my bad about the fan. My phone is literally saying that the functions are disabled because of how hot it is. But yeah, that's off topic. Pep Guardiola, I think, is a great manager. They've obviously got players like Luis Diaz and Ederson in defence. Obviously, I think the loss of Ilkay Gundogan will affect them. He was sort of more of a leader in the dressing room, great goal scorer midfielder, and I think that's why they brought in Kovacic, is to sort of replace him. Obviously, they're two quite different players, with Kovacic being more of a defensive option, whereas Gundogan was more of a box-to-box midfielder type player. But yeah, I think it'll just be more of the same from City. They won't even really need to step up from first gear to win the league, will they? I'd like to be proven wrong, and Liverpool or United win the league, but let's be real. Man City are winning the league, I'm afraid. Wraps up my Premier League predictions for the season. We'll see if I'm proven right or not. This video gets enough likes, I'll do more football content on this channel. If you want me to do predictions for other leagues, for example, or week by week predictions for the Premier League, or something like that, you know what I mean, football news even, give me likes. Yeah, if you enjoyed the video, that is. If you didn't enjoy the video, click off and go away. Also, if you didn't enjoy the video, why have you watched it all the way through? No, I'm joking. Please do consider subscribing if you enjoyed it. The season starts tonight, like I said earlier. But I'll catch you in the next one, which will be probably a main channel video. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.